For most yogis and mystics, the problem has been that they could never share the fruits of their realization with people around them. To find another person capable of receiving what you know is not easy. If you find even one person, you are fortunate. So most spiritual masters downloaded their knowing in remote but not entirely inaccessible places. They often chose mountain peaks because there is less human traffic and disturbance in such places. There are many wonderful places like this in India. Mount Kailash, the mountain peak in western Tibet, that is regarded as a sacred place of immeasurable power and antiquity, is the place where maximum amount of knowledge has been stored for a very long time in energy form. Kailash is the greatest mystical library on the planet. Almost all the religions of the East hold it as highly sacred. Among Hindus, it is traditionally regarded as the abode of the great god Shiva and his consort Parvati. The Buddhists hold it holy because 3 of their great Buddhas are believed to be living there. The Jains believe their first great master, or Tirthankara, attained liberation there. The Bon religion, which is the original religion of Tibet, also considers it deeply sacred. I have been taking people to Kailash for the past 12 years. When I went there in 2007, my health was particularly bad. I had been travelling for weeks non-stop, during which baffled medics in different parts of the world had diagnosed me with a variety of illnesses including malaria, dengue, typhoid and even cancer. The confounded doctors termed my blood reports esoteric. Finally, I decided to look inward and work on myself. A few days later, I went to Kailash. I was better at this point, but still very weak. When I looked at the mountain, I saw there was so much mystical knowledge waiting to be accessed, so I took a strand of energy from the mountain and connected it with my energy system in a certain way. As soon as I did that, there was a sudden resurgence of vitality, and my depleted energy body, ravaged by nearly 8 weeks of fever, bounced back to normal. I looked younger, felt better, even my voice had changed, just in about an hour's time. The results were visible. There were almost 200 people around me who witnessed this. There are other places of enormous vibrational energy where mystics have bequeathed the fruits of their spiritual practice. Such spaces are innumerable in the Himalayas. A variety of mystics and yogis chose these mountains as their abode. When they lived there, they naturally left behind a certain dimension of energy. As a result, the Himalayas gathered a certain aura. For example, Kedarnath is just a small temple in the Himalayas. There is no deity there. It is just an outcrop of a rock. But it is one of the most powerful places in the world. If you strive to improve your receptivity and then visit a place like that, it will just blow you away. There are many places like that in the East, but the Himalayas attract the most people. There is another place called Kumar Parvat in southern Indian state of Karnataka. Parvat means mountain, Kumara refers to the son of Shiva, whose name was Kartikeya. He fought many battles, trying to transform the world, but when he realized the futility of this, he came to this region. It is here that he washed his sword of its blood for the last time. He decided that even if he fought for 1,000 years, he was never going to change the world, and that one violent solution would breed another 10 problems. So he climbed up the mountain and stood on the summit. Normally, when a yogi wants to shed his body, he will either sit or lie down. But because he was such a warrior, Kartikeya stood up and exited his body standing. If one can exit the physical form voluntarily without damaging it, that is an indication of absolute mastery over the life process. This is generally referred to in the Indian tradition as Mahasamadhi, a glorious equanimity. When I went to Kumar Parvat many years ago, a small tent was set up for me. I wanted to sleep in it, but when I went in and tried to lie down, my body would involuntarily move into a standing posture, dismantling the tent. The whole night I was not able to sit, my body would only stand. That is when I started seeing what Kartikeya's life was all about. Although he lived thousands of years ago, what he left behind is still vibrantly alive. This kind of work can never be wiped out. Whenever a person does something with his life energies, he creates a certain possibility which cannot be erased by any event. The work and presence of anybody who experimented even a little bit with the inner dimensions can never be destroyed. For example, Gautama, the Buddha, is supposed to have lived 2500 years ago, and Jesus is supposed to have lived 2000 years ago. But as far as I am concerned, both are a living reality. Once you create a certain volume of work with your life energies, it is permanent for all practical purposes, and time does not destroy it. If you work with the physical body of flesh and blood, it has a limited lifespan. If you use your mind, the lifespan of that work is much longer. But if you work with your fundamental life energies, then the result is timeless. The Silver Peaks. Ever since my infancy, there was always a certain mountain peak in the background of my gaze. Only when I was 16 years old and discussed this with my friends, who responded, "You're crazy, where are the mountains?" did I realize that nobody else had mountains in their eyes. For some time I thought I should locate that peak, but then I put the idea aside. Suppose there were a spot in your spectacles, you would get used to it after a while. It was just like that with my mountain peak. It was only much later, when a flood of memory returned to me, and when I was looking for a place to establish the Dhyana Linga, that I began to search for the peak that had dominated my vision. I travelled everywhere. I made the 760-mile ride from Goa to Kanyakumari on the southernmost tip of India about 11 times. Along every road and mud track, I have probably ridden thousands of miles. Then just by chance, one day, many years later, I came upon a village outside Coimbatore. As I was driving around a bend, I saw the seventh hill of the Velliangiri mountains. There it was, the mountain that I had seen since my childhood. The moment I set my eyes upon that peak, one that had lived within me for my entire life, it vanished from my inner vision and became a living reality. Suddenly, I knew this would be the most conducive space for my life work. If you ask me which is the greatest mountain on the planet, I will always reply Velliangiri. I was born with an imprint of these mountains in my eyes, and they have haunted me ever since. They lived within me and have been my very own navigating system, my inner radar. The mountains are not just a matter of geography for me, they are a reservoir of all that I needed to know to create the Dhyana Linga. The word Velliangiri literally means silver mountain. This range is so named because the mountains are covered with cloud for a large part of the year. They are known as the Kailash of the south because Adi Yogi or Shiva himself spent a little over 3 months upon these mountain peaks. When he came here, he was not in his usual blissful mood. According to the legend, he was angry with himself because he had failed to keep his word to one of his most ardent women devotees. He was intense and despondent, and that energy is still evident today. It produced a string of yogis through the tradition who are of the angry sort. They did their spiritual practice here and acquired that quality. They were not angry about anything in particular. They were simply in a certain state of intensity.